Okay, this is about the least common multiple. The above video is about the greatest common factor. This one has to do with multiples. And if you can remember the little thing we did in class with multiples, you make your big giant Santa belly and you talk about all those numbers that you can multiply by and get. So multiples of 4 are 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, and we talked about where that might end. And so on kind of describes that. Also, that infinity thing we just kind of briefly touched on. The infinity idea is also something that can be applied there. They're going to continue on and on forever. If you can find the time and want to, you can you can try to figure out the end of that, but I think it's going to be a long night. 5. The first multiple of 5 is 5, 10, then 15, 20, 25, and then 30, so on and so forth. Those are all multiples of these two numbers, and you might start to notice trends in numbers and where they start to kind of align at some point. So least common multiple, I think, is easiest found using this method, but I'm also going to show you the prime factorization method that we've talked about too, just so that you can use the way that works best for you. The least common multiple, you have to know what that is before you can start. The least is the smallest, the lowest one that they have. Common means that they have it in both of their lists. When you sing your sweet little songs from 3rd grade, or when you skip count your numbers, you can find the number that they have in common when you're comparing their list. And multiple. Multiple is a number that is larger than your original number. You can multiply by any number and get a multiple of that number. What is the lowest number found in each of these lists? Well, let's see. 4. Okay, there's some 8s and some 10s. Nope, I don't see anything lining up there. We have a 15, 12, 16. Oh, I see a 20. That is the number that shows up in both of the lists. So that is their first multiple that they share. 20 is the lowest one found in each of their multiple lists. So let's practice a little bit more. And for the first step, if you want to try this before, you can press pause in the video and try this by yourself. List all your multiples for 5 and all your multiples for 8. You might already have a few that are popping into your brain that you can think on, but double check it with your list. It just helps. 5, 10, 15, blah, blah, you know that drill. And then sing your sweet little song for 8, and you'll see the first one that lines up. You have to pay really close attention, but if you really use your number theory and understanding, you know that any multiple of 5 is going to end in a 5 or a 0, so you could really just stroll along and find your first 5 or 0, and ding, 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 I have found my first 5 or 0. And that 40 is the least common multiple. To backtrack, we found the multiples of 5 and 8. We found the least common one that they had, and it is 40. Try it again for 4 and 7. Pause me if you want to. If not, just keep viewing. We have our list for 4. We have our list for 7. If you go down the list on either side and notice your first number that comes in common, see how sometimes it won't always line up. It seems easy to compare like this, but you have to think about the size of the numbers here, because 21 is actually lining up somewhere right around here. And so you kind of have to angle yourself to be in the comparable area, or else you'll miss it. 28 ends up being your first common one that they have, even though it's way down here on this list and up here on this list is still the first one that they have in common. So you find your multiples of 4 and 7. You then find the least common multiple of 4 and 7, which is 28. This should be getting a little simple. The LCM of 3 and 6, the LCM of 4 and 12, 6 and 24, 7 and 8. I know right off the top of my head I'm going to do this one first. And the reason is that 7 and 8 both are very different numbers. So I know right off the top of my head by looking at this list, the largest multiple that I see here is 56, and it is a multiple of both 8 and 7. And 8 and 7 multiply together to give you 56. And and 8 and 7's first multiple that they share is that number. So sometimes that will happen. That's not all the time. Another case where that's going to happen is right here, and I hope you notice that one right away too, that the second multiple of 3 is 6, and the first multiple of 6 is 6. So those also line up. I'm left with these two. Now don't start going back into the greatest common factor brain when you're thinking of these different ones. But do notice, if you list out your first multiples of 4, you have 4, 8, and then you have 12. So that is the first multiple that these share. Oh, I'm getting all these good noises. I'm liking it. And the first multiple of 4 and 6 that they share is 24 itself, which is also a possibility that it could be one of the numbers listed. So we kind of talked about that. And you notice that 4 and 12, 3 and 18, 9 and 27, all these, the larger number is the LCM. That's not always the case, but that is sometimes the case, especially if you know that these two numbers are in the same number family, the skip counting family. The larger number is not always the LCM, though. If you think about these two, 12 is not a multiple of 5, and we kind of worked with a few of those. So I would always start with the larger number, check its multiples just to be sure that the smaller number doesn't show up there. You know right away that that's your trigger because it ends in a 0, and you can try to find the LCM of 9 and 12. The answer is 36. The first multiple of 9 and 12 is 36 because it's the third multiple of 9, and it is the third multiple of 12. Let me make sure I'm saying that right. It is not the third multiple of 9, it's the third multiple of 12. It is the fourth multiple of 9. Got those all backwards. Just, you know, normal stuff. And let me get this out of the way. Find the LCM for each of these below. Check it. You can practice. Check your answers as I'm going through this. And that's the end. And I want to thank you for stopping by. See ya.